About 2 weeks ago, I borrowed Martin's laptop because mine had died and I needed to check an email about my kid's daycare. Nothing unusual there, right? But when I opened the browser, I noticed he had been looking up visa requirements for Singapore. We've never once discussed Singapore, not for travel, not for work, not for anything. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe it was unrelated. But then I saw he'd also searched for international schools in Singapore. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Why would he be checking schools in another country? I tried to let it go, but it nagged at me. That night at dinner, I casually asked if he'd ever considered visiting Singapore. He gave me a strange look and quickly said, "Not really. Why?" before changing the subject. His reaction set off alarms. He avoided eye contact, fidgeted with his fork, and looked uncomfortable. The next day, while he was at work, I checked his laptop again. Yes, it was an invasion of privacy, but I was worried. I found emails with someone named Grace. They weren't explicit, but the tone was personal. She wrote things like, "I can't wait until we can be together properly. The waiting is killing me." In another, she mentioned, "I've been looking at houses near that school we liked. Plenty of room for the kids to play." The kids? My kids? That's when I realized this was more serious than I thought. I kept searching and discovered that Martin had applied for a job transfer to Singapore and had already been approved. He had a flight booked for next month. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. We've been together since high school. We share 2 children. And here he was, planning an entirely new life without me. I documented everything, took photos and sent them to my sister. I also synced his texts to the iPad so I could see what he was messaging. For a week, I watched him text Grace constantly. While they didn't openly discuss taking the kids, their messages made it clear they were planning something. He reassured her that everything was on track. At the same time, I discovered he had been moving money into another account, nearly $20,000 over 3 months. Curious about who Grace was, I searched her number. She turned out to be his coworker, someone he'd worked with for over a year. Her social media was full of team lunches and office parties, many with Martin in the background. One post read, "Sometimes the best things in life come when you least expect them." Of course, Martin had liked it. At that point, I couldn't hold back. While the kids napped, I confronted him. I asked again about Singapore, and he denied it, claiming it was just vacation research. When I brought up Grace, his face went pale. He stumbled over his words, insisting I didn't understand. I asked him directly if he was planning to take our children. He refused to answer. We argued, and he accused me of being dramatic and unreasonable. Then his phone buzzed. It was Grace. When I tried to grab it, he stopped me. We struggled, and during the argument, I noticed a manila envelope on the counter. Inside were passport applications, flight itineraries, and custody papers, all pointing to a plan to leave with the kids. I tried to gather the documents, but Martin yanked me back by my hair. I broke free, grabbed for the knife drawer in fear, and the confrontation escalated. The kids were sent off to play while the adults talked. Martin started with a heavy sigh and said he never meant for things to get so out of hand. He claimed he only wanted what was best, and that he felt blindsided when I left with the kids and turned the family against him. He said he'd been unhappy for a long time and felt trapped by our routine, that I never listened when he tried to bring it up. He even offered a non-apology. "I'm sorry if you felt hurt." My mom interrupted him. She said he could have simply talked to me instead of making plans behind my back or trying to move our children. Martin responded defensively, insisting I never let him have a real conversation and that whenever he tried, I shut him down or changed the subject. I don't remember that, and maybe I was tired of being blamed, but that's what he said. Martin's mother tried to reason with him. She said she didn't recognize the man who would try to sneak his children out of the country. He admitted he felt desperate and thought starting over somewhere else with someone who cared would be easier. I thought, if Grace is his solution, then I dodged a bullet. But that's beside the point. My dad asked directly whether Martin intended to take the kids without my permission. Martin mumbled he wasn't sure and thought maybe I would come around if I understood he was serious. That line of thinking, that I would simply give up our children because he pushed hard enough, made it clear how deluded his plan was. The conversation went in circles. Martin suggested I meet Grace and get to know her, saying she was good with children and wanted to be part of their lives. My mom and sister reacted strongly. I told Martin I didn't care how good she was with kids. She didn't make them, and she wouldn't become their parent without my consent. He grew frustrated, raised his voice, and accused me of being unreasonable and punishing him for falling in love with someone else. He said I'd changed since having kids, tired, busy, not fun, which hurt because it's true I've been exhausted. But we should be a team, not adversaries. My dad warned him not to come near the house or the children without permission and said he'd call the police if he did. After Martin left, my mom hugged me. I felt numb. I spent the afternoon with the kids, trying to act normal. But every notification or passing car made me jumpy. A few days later, it escalated legally. I received a letter from Martin's lawyer requesting joint custody and permission to relocate internationally if an opportunity arose. My dad called his lawyer friend, who advised against signing anything and told us to prepare for custody proceedings. I met my own lawyer, thanks to my parents paying, and was told Martin could not remove the children from the country without my consent, but he could still make things difficult. My lawyer advised documenting everything and to channel communications through attorneys. Martin didn't follow that advice. He began showing up at the daycare asking questions. One morning, the manager pulled me aside, told me Martin had been waiting outside, and asked whether he should be allowed to pick the kids up. I asked him to refuse unless I said otherwise and signed paperwork to that effect. That's how surreal it gets. You sign forms to stop your own husband from taking your children. My parents' home felt both safe and strained. My dad was tense, my mom was exhausted, my sister was constantly updating friends. The 3-year-old began having nightmares and waking for daddy, which was heartbreaking. Martin's mother stayed with us, but was clearly torn. She loved her son and her grandchildren. Sometimes I'd catch her crying in private. Grace messaged me with a long apology, claiming she didn't mean to break up a family and wanted Martin to be happy, suggesting we could all make it work. I didn't respond. My lawyer urged me to get a formal custody order to prevent Martin from taking the kids. I delayed for a while, partly because I didn't want my life to become all paperwork and partly because I hoped Martin would change his mind. But he kept pressuring and circulating messages suggesting others thought I was overreacting. He was cherry-picking friends' comments to make me doubt myself. Still, I couldn't forget the envelope with tickets and passports, or the way he grabbed my arm. Tensions rose at dinner when my dad and Martin's mom argued. Dad insisted lost isn't an excuse to hurt others. Martin's mom argued for understanding. It was awkward and draining. The kids became clingier. The toddler acted out at daycare and refused to sleep alone. Between legal prep, family pressure, and no sleep, I was exhausted, but kept going because I had no alternative. Martin filed for emergency visitation, accusing me of withholding the children and alienating them. The court set a temporary hearing date. My parents helped prepare evidence and make lists. The whole process felt like gearing up for battle against someone who used to be your partner. The night before the hearing, Martin texted asking when I'd collect my remaining things because he'd changed the locks and was staying at Grace's. Instead of hurting me, it felt like relief. Home was wherever my kids were safe. The hearing itself was a blur. Lawyers, documents, and Martin sitting across from me with Grace present. The judge asked pointed questions about the job transfer, the tickets, and the secrecy. My lawyer presented emails, texts, the daycare incident, and the kitchen confrontation. The judge issued a temporary order. Martin could have supervised, scheduled visits in public only, and could not remove the children from the state or country without my written permission. The judge emphasized stability for the children. After the hearing, Martin asked me to consider his perspective and to give him a chance. I responded calmly that honesty would have been a better start. Back at my parents' house, there was relief and exhaustion. My mom cooked, my dad opened a bottle of wine, and my sister made the kids silly crowns. A small reprieve. The fallout continued. Martin's extended family split. Mutual friends grew awkward or took sides. I blocked some people who tried to pry. Money remained tight. And paperwork was relentless. I stayed with my parents while figuring out next steps. The kids asked about Martin. Sometimes they were sad. Sometimes they were indifferent. I answered honestly, in small ways, and told them we were working it out. Martin has not attempted anything drastic since the court order. He sends occasional subdued messages about toys or snacks. He appears to still be involved with Grace, but she's stopped contacting me. My lawyer says that as long as I follow the court order, things should settle, though there's no guarantee. I don't pretend it's over. I'm tired, financially strained, and rebuilding from scratch. But I've learned I can fight for my children even when it feels impossible, even when the person you trusted betrays you. I'm not a hero, just a parent pushed to act. That's where this ends for now. Thanks for reading.